This is Paul Skenes. We talked about the Pirates and why they never get better. So a lot of people said, hey, should we just trade him? Should the Pirates just trade Paul Skenes? And I have some opinions on that, which I will talk about in a moment. So in a recent appearance on the Pat McAfee show, MLB insider Jeff Passan said the truth is there will be teams that ask about Paul Skenes at the deadline this year, and I don't anticipate that he's going to be moved. But there's a real argument to be made that the best thing for the Pittsburgh Pirates would be to move Paul Skenes while he has the most value. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. I agree with the value proposition of Paul Skenes, okay? He is one of the best pitchers in the major leagues. He will continue to be one of the best pitchers in the major leagues. But he's only in the second year of the 6-year rookie contract, and the Pirates aren't going to extend him. It's just not going to happen. All right? So, what would it take to get him for any team? And shout out to producer DK for throwing some of these proposals around, like what type of prospect haul would need to be pushed out for a guy like Paul Skenes so we can go get him if we are one of these other big teams like the Red Sox, the Orioles, or the Tigers, okay? But there's some issues with him, and there's a reason why this is very unlikely to happen, and Jeff Passan was very clear about this being really unlikely, and I agree with him. Because of control. I wanted to be, I thought this would be really interesting to talk about because he is so controllable. When you trade a guy where you have 4.5 years of control over him before you have to pay him big bucks, which is what the Pirates want. They want to keep people and pay them as little as possible, as long as possible. It only makes sense if your team's going to get way better immediately. And there are very few trades that make that happen. For example, DK gave me this one. The Red Sox, Roman Anthony and Franklin Arias for Paul Skenes. Though that's interesting, currently, neither one of those guys are in the big leagues. And Paul Skenes is going to be right there for the Cy Young as long as he's healthy for the foreseeable future. So that would still not be enough, in my opinion, for him. It wouldn't be enough because they don't know what kind of impact those two guys are going to have on the big league team. And you have to have that needs to be a full rebuild. So they would need more than that because two prospects, one of them might hit. I know one of them is the number one overall. But let's see. DK says in the chat, there was no precedent for this. I tried my best. He did try his best. But this is an interesting one. It's a trade that shouldn't happen, so you're off the hook, okay? So the Pirates are going to need one of two things, right? They're going to need lots of prospects, but they're also going to need big league talent right now. And the problem with big league talent right now is that would take one or two guys, which would then up the payroll for the Pirates, which is not something they want to do. So that's kind of off the table, but from a talent standpoint, they would need guys that are proven in the big leagues, at least one, to be involved in this situation because of the control. They're like, we need big league talent now as well as prospects because we're giving up so much control of this guy because he's going to be cheap for whatever he gets.
I just want to say, before Arena Club, if you were trying to very actively buy, sell, trade, it was very complicated and used a lot of mail that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do it, but I'm glad we have Arena Club now because it's a one-stop shop for everything card-related.
It is, and right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you're a collector, you've got to check out Arena Club. Go get after it.
But good big league talent, especially anyone on a deal, is too expensive for the Pirates. So, like, for example, you can't throw Rafi Devers in there because Rafi's way too expensive for the Pirates. Like, you'd have to throw him in and Red Sox be like, we'll cover $200 million. Like, that's the only way that would happen. They would have to eat so much of his salary for that to happen. And then they would have to pay Paul Skenes. And you can't do both of those things. There's very few teams that will. So, going to get a premier talent for Paul that's being paid would be really hard to do. So that leaves us like guys who are like in their fifth year and potentially stars. Unfortunately, all these young guys that are going to be stars are all signed to mega deals. Like, you can go get Jackson Merrill now. Too expensive for the Pirates. Honestly, if you threw Campbell in here, too expensive for the Pirates. Anyone from the Braves, too expensive for the Pirates. So you would have to get somebody who's also on a rookie deal that's just as good. And those don't exist. So what about the Orioles? Jackson Holliday, Samuel Basallo, and Kobe Mayo? Again, is Jackson Holliday the big league talent? Because he's pretty much just Jack Zawinski. At this point, is that enough? I don't know. I don't know, because we don't know how the other two are going to pan out. Kobe Mayo? They're 15. They're just as bad as the Pirates. But they need hitting, but they're going to need premier hitting. They need a guy. They need a guy who's automatically the anchor for their team. They need like a Corey Seager, a Francisco Lindor. Like, all these guys are being paid $300 million. There's no way they're going to get any of them. So if there's no big league talent involved, then the prospect haul has to be ridiculous. I'm talking 5 or 6 players. Ridiculous. But then that's not worth it for the other team. Because even in the most incredible year, Paul Skenes is worth what, like 7 WAR? That's 7 wins. He's a starting pitcher. He only pitches in 32 of the 162 games. There's only so valuable one guy can be. So if you're giving away all of your prospects, all of them, that trade-off needs to be like, oh, we could be trading away 30 WAR, or not 30, 30's a shit ton, but like 18 WAR for 7 WAR if it's prospects, if just 2 of them hit or 3 of them hit at any point. And we'd be hamstringing our entire minor league system just to get Paul. Can't do that either. So it's a conundrum. There's a reason it's not going to happen, but there's no world in which any of these works. Here's a few more, all right? Jackson Jobe, Max Clark, and Kevin McGonigal. Maybe a pitcher swap, maybe. That one's close. What about Jack Caglione, Blake Mitchell, and Noah Cameron? No big leaguers. Padres, Leo DeVries and Ethan Salas. They could use a catcher, I'll tell you that much. Maybe. The problem is he's so good and he's got so much control that you can't balance it, and you would have to be taking a massive risk. And as we just talked about, that risk ain't going to be happening with guys that inherited their baseball teams. So what do you guys think? A Dodgers-style deal? Maybe. Tigers would never do that? Exactly. Almost every scenario we throw out there, one of the two teams is like, nah, would just hang up. The conversation can't even happen at this point. So we'll check in with him after this season and see where we're at. But Paul Skenes needs to go somewhere so he can be happy a little bit.